Football made simple. Become great at your craft by finding ways to make it simple for those around you. This is the Coaching 101 podcast hosted by Find a Way Productions with your co-hosts Daniel Chamberlain and Kenny Simpson. What's up, coaches? This is the Coaching 101 podcast. I'm Daniel Chamberlain. That is Kenny Simpson. Coach, my season's half over.
Yeah.
Which is so wild. I feel like it just got started, and here we are 5 games in.
It goes quick. It goes super quick, and I'm a dad with a senior, so it really feels like it's going really quick. So,
I bet.
And obviously we hope we make the playoffs, but there's no guarantees on anything. And so you try to enjoy it. And I try to talk to our kids about that. A lot of them, we had some success last year, and so they're looking forward to hopefully redoing that run. So guys, that's fine. And I'm glad you're looking forward. I'm glad you're trying to improve, but we do need to enjoy right now. Like, let's enjoy right now, because it'll be gone before we know it, and then even if you are lucky enough to win a state championship, ultimately it's over. So try to enjoy the ride. That's been something we've tried to kind of hammer home. We had the bye week last week, got a random bye week in the middle of the year with our kids. And then this week's homecoming week. Hey, we got to win. We got to get better, but let's try to what's going on right now. Because too often as coaches, all we do is we enjoy Friday night, and we don't really enjoy the rest of the stuff.
How I have to ask how you use that bye week. Was that just a get healthy week? Was you just stay after it? I know kind of different coaches treat that different, right?
Yeah. Monday we gave them off. We had a JV game that night, so it kind of worked out. They came in. We talked about the last game, watched a little film. I think we got a lift in, and Varsity guys left, and JV had a game. Tuesday, we did Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday were pretty decent practices. We got after it a little bit and tried to get a little better. Now we didn't go super long. We got them out of here early. I think Tuesday and Thursday they got out of here like at 4:30 or 4:45, so kind of early. Wednesday was kind of a heavier practice right there in the middle of the week. Friday we came in and lifted them and said, "See you. Go enjoy your Friday night. You're not going to have another one of these open for hopefully a while." Yeah. So we gave them 2 days off. We had several that were kind of dinged up and injured, and obviously those ones we were careful with. But we tried to spend 3 days of getting better.
That's awesome. Yeah, coaches I've worked with in the past can use that as a kind of what you did. Like, you can either keep working and just take a next step, or we can take a break. So it's I like the way you did it. That's pretty good. Sweet, man. Well, let's jump into this quote of the week, and then we will do our ads and get on with the conversation.
Yeah, quote of the week. Again, this is from Team Themes Volume 5. We're doing team themes with our kids. And, man, I encourage you coaches, don't have to use my stuff. Do something with your kids. Talk to your kids. Spend 5 minutes a day giving them life advice, because these kids don't get it. A lot of them don't get it anywhere else. So, and it sticks with our kids. Our kids, they know the word of the week. They learn a couple lessons from it. So anyway, this one's out of Team Themes Volume 5. This actually was a quote for the coaches. The first part of those books, I put 2 pages of quotes that are directed for coaches. Now, I'm not actually a giant fan of Charles Darwin. He's not a guy but I think this is a great quote from him. It says, "It's not the strongest of the species that will survive. It's not the most intelligent, but it's the ones most responsive to change." I think that's something we can all learn from. Especially we've been coaching for a long time, is knowledge is great. You got to continue to gain knowledge, the thirst for knowledge, the thirst for change, the thirst to adapt to what's going on. Those are the guys who are going to be most successful, whatever they do. But I think especially in the coaching world is staying on top of what's working, trying to continue to get better, not saying we've always done it this way. Those are the guys that are probably going to be the most successful at their job.
It's that adaptability, right? That's a super big word for us in my family, just being adaptable, being fluid. So great quote. All right, man. Well, if you don't mind, share some ways that we can make things better for our coaches, our players, and our staff. All right. If you guys are listening live, we're going to cut some digital ads in here later. So if you go back and listen to it, which you should. We need them downloads. Okay, the book and then the book. All right, here we go.
Book clinic. Yep.
Oh, and the clinics. Yes, let me type that because I'll read right past it. I guess you got those dates pulled up. You at least talk about them. The first few.
Yes.
Okay, here we go. All right, appreciate that, Coach. Thank you so much to our sponsors, Ace Sports, big one, been here with us for a couple years now. We appreciate Mark and the guys, Jason, all the guys over at Ace Sports. One, for the product they provide. If you have not looked into Ace Sports, it's the best of the best when you get into video boards. And look, I know it's a big ticket item, but it's also a big fundraiser. You get into that and you start getting that income check coming off the ads, the ad revenue. Man, you can pay for the board very, very quickly, and then everything else is just going back into your program. So it's a huge, huge thing. A lot of guys want turf. A lot of guys want different things. Maybe you need a new sled or new jerseys, but that board brings some excitement to your environment on Friday nights, but also it brings some financial gain to your program, to your school. I think it's a key piece to anybody that's really wanting to be successful in the long run. So jump over to Ace Sports or email mark.bridges@acesports.com. And then in Winning Edge Performance Analytics, Doug has done an amazing job getting that product off the ground. He first year going in here, we've been using it like crazy. I still think, one, it does give you reports in the middle of the game. And you can see what's hitting, what isn't. You can go by efficiency, you can go by explosiveness, whatever it is. Maybe a single player that you're needing to highlight. But the biggest thing is the Saturday when you wake up, all of your film is tagged. Everything's already in there. So you don't have to go back and do that. Which, if any of y'all have ever cut film, you know that once you get 2 or 3 angles and then you got to go add a piece, it messes up all your data in Huddle, right? If you've been tagging it by hand, it goes haywire. I'm sure you've all seen that. With his product, it's pretty simple because the data is all on its own, basically film. So it makes it very, very easy to do. So jump over to winningedgeperformanceanalytics.com and sign up for that today. He's got 20% off your first year. If you go sign up, use the code 20OFFCoaching101. All right, Coach, tell me about your new book. I know we've had a podcast about it. We've talked to other coaches about it. That 0-10 to 10-0. How's that book come along?
Really well. We're waiting. My wife's got to do the cover for it, and I had a couple more people look at it to edit. I don't know if y'all have read my books, I need a lot of editors. So had a couple guys kind of go through it, try to find issues. So hopefully it'll be edited well and done, but it's from 0-10 to 10-0. It's actually cut up into 10 chapters, so there's a lot of 10s there, but basically it's things that we learned as we grew our program here, and it wasn't an overnight turn. It wasn't 0-10 to 10-0 one year. It was a process. So hopefully it can help coaches. That's going to come out probably the end of October, hopefully, or early November. When it does, I'm sure we'll let you know, but be looking for that book. I think it's going to be a really, really good one. It's cut up into 10 chapters, and it has questions for you at the end of each chapter. Is meant to, again, be a practical book. I'm not putting out books that are just theory. It's meant to be, here's what we really did. Here's what really happened. The last chapter of the book, I have all of my assistant coaches from that team. They write about it. And so you're getting this real life experience. It's not some make-believe whatever. And then at the end of each chapter, it's got questions for you to kind of assess your own program and maybe get something from it.
That's good. And that's a good book, right? When you can immediately take it and it's a measuring stick. How are we doing things? Where are we at in this process? Because you may not know. You may take a new gig and you may be on chapter 4 already. You don't need to stumble through the first few years, right? So that's awesome. I like having a measuring stick for a book like that. All right, Gunty 7.0 is coming out. We're talking about before we hit record. Maybe we should have put these by year, but we don't want to date them. But 7.0 is coming out. Some new wrinkles for this year. Tell me about that, Coach.
Yeah, so 7.0 will come out. Basically, every year we've put Gunty books out. You have to evolve. We just have that quote, you better evolve and adapt. So as we add little things in, whether it's a practice thing we're doing or whether it's a new formation we're looking at or it's a new little wrinkle, we've been using our new RPO. We try to always update those books so they kind of go sequential. They add on. In some years, you may pull from the 3.0 because we did more quarterback run that year. This year, got a really, really good quarterback, very talented kids. We're throwing it quite a bit more. So there's going to be more RPO type stuff in there, more passing game type stuff in there. Just what we're doing. So each year we add a little bit. This one's going to have a whole section on how we use our pods in practice. So, but it'll be the 7.0, probably be out, I would imagine, mid-November, maybe December. But it'll be the updated, stuff that we're doing now.
I love it. Seeing what's new in those every year is always so neat, especially because I'm kind of evolving with a different system too. It's kind of neat watching them evolve, but we get to the same place, right? Through completely different means, but it's like, hey, we got that too this year. So that's really neat. Makes you wonder about, where the hive mind of football coaches, kind of, we all do the same stuff. So I love it. Last piece here before we move on to the conversation, talking about clinics. You've got the Gun T clinics dates set up for next year. We'll talk about those first few for us.
Yeah, I'm hoping to have those up again into this month where you can register. Those are all first come, first serve. I think last year we had 2 that filled up. So, you need to get registered as quickly as you can on those. They're going to be all over the country. So we have a couple out west, got a couple on the East Coast, a couple Northeast, a couple Mid-Central. But basically they'll start, I think our first one's always right before the AFCA in Charlotte. So we got one in Charlotte on January 9th and 10th. Then we have one in San Diego, California for the Southwest guys or guys just want a nice vacation in San Diego. That's January 23rd, 24th. And I got several in February that'll be scattered throughout, a bunch in March. We kind of wrap up in April. So going to several familiar places. We're going back to Boston, going back to Milwaukee. So going back to a couple of familiar places. Try to add a few in. We're going to Sacramento. We're going to Minnesota this year. So some new ones in there as well. Make sure you check the website. I'll have them put up here within the next couple weeks.
Love it. Guys, keep an eye on that. If you get one near you, or if you need to take a vacation, it's a great way to take a vacation. That's what Sam and I, I like going. She was upset last year. She didn't get to vacation with me in Boston, but really I was there for the Gun T clinic. So anyway, it's good to pair those things together. Take your family, send them off to do whatever they want to do. All right, man, let's jump into the conversation here. So today we're talking about when to play underclassmen. And of course, there's going to be guys that listen to this podcast that may have 100 kids on their team and they may never play a kid up, or very, very rare. And then there's some guys that live in a world where you have 3 or 4 freshmen on the field every year because that's just what numbers do to you, right? If you've got 17, 20 kids on the team, you got to play who you got. So jump into part one here. What is underclassmen to you, Coach? Where's that line drawn in the sand for you guys?
Yeah, Arkansas is a little bit different. Our junior high technically is 9th through 7th grade. So you can play a 9th grader up, but it's very, very rare in Arkansas, especially at middle to big schools. It's very rare to do that. So usually I kind of draw that line at 10th graders. Like, they're on your team. We have a JV schedule we play, but these are the guys that practice with us every day. They're usually our scout team guys for the most part. We can play 9th graders, like I said, and thinking the history of the school, and we've had some not great years. We've played one 9th grader. I think we dressed my son his 9th grade year. I don't think he got on the field till the end. But so rarely do we ever play 9th graders here, just because we're fortunate to be big enough, and we try not to play 10th graders. And I think that old coach once told me, and it kind of stuck with me, that for every underclassmen you put on the field, that's probably a loss or a big mistake in a big game you're going to get. It's not their fault. They're just babies, so they're just out there and they're now ready for the moment. It's a big, big jump from junior high football to senior high football at any level you play, where you go from playing against kids that, you're equal to you think about a 14, 15-year-old kid, and you think about an 18-year-old kid. And even a bad 18-year-old is probably going to be as good as, a pretty good 15-year-old, just because of maturity and just because he's mentally going to be able to handle that. And so that's a huge, huge difference. My oldest son is 18 right now, and then I've got one who's in the 7th grade. I know that's a little big of a gap, but I remember when my 18-year-old was 15, he had to play as a sophomore. So we've played sophomores before. But he would blow a coverage every now and then, or he would miss a tackle because he was trying to tackle a guy that weighed 210 and he weighed 165 as a sophomore. And, he came in there and thought he was going to knock the snot out of a guy and realized real quickly, wait, you're the low man on the totem pole. So, sure, in my opinion, it's really difficult to play underclassmen most successful programs don't play a lot of underclassmen for those reasons listed. It doesn't mean you don't play a few of them. I mean, even at the highest levels, you're seeing specimens that come out where this kid's really good. And one of our best years, we played our starting quarterback, who now is a junior. His 9th grade year, we did pull him up, and he started every game at corner for us. And it was a good thing for him. So I know that we've got a couple questions coming up about why and why not, but it's one of those deals where it can be a good thing. And I think there are certain kids that it was better for him to play up than dominate junior high football where no one really cares. And I'm not trying to be ugly to junior high football. It has its place. It has its role. But there are times when you look at a kid and go, I don't know if he's getting any better dominating these kids that are not able to tackle him. So I think sometimes you got to look at it from both ends of the spectrum. One, your varsity end, can this kid help us win? And two, the kids, that's playing, is he getting anything out of playing at a lower level? Like, is he getting anything out of playing JV? Or sometimes you form bad habits where kids are so much better than everybody else at that level, they get away with stuff that, like, maybe think about the running back who runs outside his blocks because he's faster than everybody.
Yep.
And all of a sudden he comes up to varsity football in the 10th grader and it's a loss of 4. Those are things where you got to start looking at, okay, what's helping this kid? Or maybe you got a young specimen at quarterback who's all his reads are late. He's not doing what he's coached because he can just outrun everybody. That kid's probably not getting any better playing at that level. So you got to kind of look at it from both perspectives and then do what's best for the individual kid and do what's best for your program. And that's, to me, those are difficult decisions. And we're going to have a couple more questions that sometimes can make it even harder with who he's replacing.
Yeah, that's a big one. If you've got a kid that's a senior or junior and put in the time and he's just not quite as good as that freshman, that's a conversation you have to have, right? And you got to start kind of working that in. A couple of years ago, I was at a school that it was a big school. And I was a freshman coach, and they took, a couple of our guys were like, nope, these guys are going to suit. And one of them ended up with playing time. He was a specimen. He also blew some coverages like you're talking about, right? He still was. There was times where he was a little stiff out there, a little scared going against some of those other guys. So it happens. What we find that you got to find that good mixture of development versus we have limitations. Like I think Oklahoma's is 8 quarters. They can play 8 quarters of football. And so, you look at small schools, sometimes they play like 7th, 8th, 9th grade games. Like it's all of them in one just because numbers aren't there. So if you play him there and you somehow scratch together a JV team, now he's just not available on Friday because of the limitation of quarters. So then do you pull him out of one of those? Right. So it just becomes, you have to do kind of the mathematical thing and figure out where is the development best for him. Like you said, Kenny, I've been a coach on a junior high team when someone's playing that, what ends up being an absolute stud, they play him down to get him reps because he's not quite good enough to play on Friday, but he's just making us look stupid, right? He's so much better than all of my kids that there's no stopping him. We're going to lose this game no matter what because of that one kid. And that stinks for all of my kids. There's no developmental value really in that to them, except for sometimes you're just not as good as the other guy. If they have a guy, you would like for a week to game plan that kid, but we all know we don't really game plan junior high games, right? You just go out there and answer questions as they come up. So,
well, I think you also you have to understand the value of where your program is. Like, are you winning games on Friday nights? So you have a secure, like as a coach, you got a job. I mean, let's be honest, you're winning games on Friday night. You can be a little more, I don't really care if we win on Monday nights or whatever night because we're focused on Friday nights. But I've been places here, we knew we were starting, I think it was 15 sophomores, 15 of them. So we knew probably Friday nights weren't going to go well for us. So we just turned around and those kids would play half the game of JV just to get more experience. And it also mattered that we won. Like if you're not winning on Friday, you got to set that tone somewhere. Like kids have to learn how to win. And so there's times where when you're not good on varsity, you may have to say, okay, maybe now's not the time to pull this kid up. Let's let this group learn how to win. And then when they're ready, they'll all come up. So I think you have to kind of judge that with where's your program. Successful programs, guys that are winning on Friday nights, have a little more leeway in this world. You're not winning on Friday nights. It might be more important that you win on those other nights.
For sure. Kind of talking about why we don't play them. You talked about the mental aspect, right? Like physically, you can see it. And I've been schools where there's absolute giants standing on the sideline. You're like, how come that kid's not in? But it's because mentally they're not a giant, right? They just don't understand, whether it's they can't see football yet. They don't have the fundamentals. I always think like O-linemen. I went and visited a school a few years ago and their O-line was terrible. A bunch of seniors that were 5'8", 5'9". I mean, little dudes, and they had 2 6-foot-plus dudes on the sideline, but they were freshmen. They just weren't ready to step up. They didn't understand the game. So it doesn't matter. It gets back to that, like, that kid's not going to be any better just because he's big than those little kids that are out there, smaller but more mature kids that are on the field. You just kind of have to do it with what you got. But I have personally seen that mental lack of whatever it is, football IQ, football knowledge, whatever you want to call it, where a kid is just a specimen, can run faster, jump higher, catch everything, throw it, whatever you want him to do, but he just doesn't. I mean, you even put him at corner and he can't play cover 3 because he doesn't understand what stay over the top of that means, right? I mean, that's where a lot of these freshmen are, especially if it comes from a school that doesn't have a great history, and so there's not a lot of development going on. You're so focused on winning Friday night that you can't develop the lower class, which happens in a lot of turnaround situations, right? I've just got to get the ship righted at the front. I kind of like the way you look at junior high games in that case. Is you better start really focusing on them because now they really matter. But unfortunately, those get overlooked, I think, sometimes. So seeing a kid that's just not mentally ready, that will often shine brighter than any of their physical traits, right? Let's jump into the second part here. What are some indications that an underclassman is actually ready to go? So when you start looking at those sophomores, or you said you played a freshman up. So what was it you saw in those kids that makes you think, yes, okay, we're going to pull him up?
Well, you kind of hit the nail on the head too. I think I don't think that linemen are ever ready when they're young. I think that even if they're big and physical and strong, I mean, and you may have one that's just a freak. I mean, I'm not talking about NFL stars here, but it's tough for a lineman to come up and play just because, man, I don't care how big you are. You're going against, basically men, 18-year-olds, 17-year-olds with a 14-year-old. He better be another level. I also don't always think linemen swing games. Like the first thing we're looking at before we bring a kid up and play him, or we play a sophomore, is he going to help us win games? And generally, not always, but generally linemen, unless they're just a freak, they're not going to swing a game. They're not going to swing a game. Plugging a hole with a lineman is nice, but usually they're not going to swing a game unless they're just crazy. So usually we're looking at skill kids when we're talking about, is this guy ready to come up and play? And so we're looking at those guys, those quarterbacks, DBs, could be a running back, linebacker type kid, those kids that physically have matured. So the first thing we look at is physically, are they mature enough to handle this? Because it's a different grind. Are they ready to come up and play at the level we're going to play at? Do they have that special talent? Usually that's the easiest question to answer because usually yes or no pretty quickly on that one. Then we look at how are they handling competing up? Like, are they going to be able to compete up at a higher level? Or are they a kid that really they're not ready to do that? And I'll give you a couple examples. We've got several kids in our program. So right now my son is a 7th grader, my youngest. Unfortunately for us, our junior high program, not a very big 9th grade class. We had one get hurt. So it's just not a really strong class just because of numbers.
Yep.
A lot of 8th graders having to start on junior high nights, which is usually not good because they're playing against 9th graders. Had a couple of them get hurt. So now we're going, okay, my 7th grader, he's going to have to play up. And we offered 3 or 4 other 7th graders the same opportunity. But Are they ready to do that? Like, we don't want to force a kid. So if the kid said, "Hey, I'm not," they're nervous about it. You definitely don't want to force that. Some kids have always been the best kid in their group, and they're not ready yet to not be that guy. And you know what I'm talking about. Some kids I call them show ponies. Like, you're really good. Are you going to be good when, wait a minute, the other guys on the other side are as good as me? And here's a good example of if your kid's not ready. If those kids always get hurt when they play against teams that are as good as them, if those kids get really frustrated when they're not scoring every time or they're not making every tackle, they're not ready. Like, they're not ready. They need to practice up. Like, it'd be great for them to practice up so they can learn how to deal with not being the best kid on the field, but they're probably not ready to move up and play games. They're going to really struggle. So that's what I'm looking for mentality-wise is, how's your kid going to do when we bring him up and now he gets smoked? Like, he just gets smoked. Talked about the quarterback I've got. It was a ninth grader. He came up. Well, he got burned several times. Several times he got burned. He was mentally able to handle that. Like, he didn't mentally melt on us when that happened. He just, okay, let's get better and let's go to the next one. So he had the mindset where he was ready. I mentioned my 10th grader son, and we're starting 3 10th graders right now. We're 5-0. So same thing with them. When they miss a block or miss a tackle or miss an assignment, are they mentally able to overcome that? The answer is yes. Mentally, they're ready, and you can go ahead and kind of give them that deal. Do you have the supports for that? Like, have you built in supports for this kid? They're going to need special treatment. I don't mean like they don't need you to roll out the red carpet or treat them different. But I mean, they're going to need to have a coach who's intentionally watching them. Like, how are they mentally handling this? Their position coach needs to be very aware. Hey, we got a young one out there. We got to have eyes on him at all times. Make sure we're communicating with him about how he's handling this. Anytime you got a young one out there, you got to always understand that, like, they're going to need you to kind of assist them more than probably an upperclassman is, who's already been through the fire a little bit, who has earned his way up there. Are we able to handle with our team? Hey guys, we got a sophomore out here. We need you seniors to help them. Like, you gotta help them when they're on the field with communication, getting lined up, handling adversity. Are our kids ready? Do we have leaders that recognize that and they're willing and able to help? Or is our culture one where they're mad that he's out there and they're not going to help them? So I think you got to kind of build that support system, because you throw one out there that's a 10th grader that may be on his own. It could be his own fault. Maybe he's just one that doesn't want to be taught, or it could be your older kid's fault where they care more about themselves than the team. If that happens, you got a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Have you built up supports and had communication leading into this where he knows you're going to respect the kids that are above you and you're going to listen to them? And the older kids know this kid's going to help us win. You got to help them. If you have those conversations, it could be a really good thing. It's really cool to watch our seniors lead our sophomores. That's really neat. But I've also seen it at times where there's a lot of envy, jealousy brought on by both sides where it has not played out well.
Yeah, I think if you're taking, especially an upperclassman, maybe even a senior off the field for your younger guy to get reps, that's a sticky situation for the kids to be in, because you just said it. Like, you want them to come up as a group. So these guys have been playing together since they were in junior high, and now one of their own is getting replaced. And that stinks, right? You don't ever want to see that. But if you've got a kid that needs the reps, or upperclassman that just isn't in quite doing it, that's kind of what it is, right? So I've seen that personally, and it was unfortunately the negative version of that. The yelling at the DC because so-and-so's a senior and they should be out there, not this freshman kid who's making mistakes. That's another thing you just said.
They're going to make
them young ones are going to screw up. Oh yeah, well, our guy wouldn't have done that. So, it can go pretty south pretty quick. I think it is a good culture if you can get them where they want to support that. I kind of wrote on here, just you got to look for that potential. Is it someone we been in a situation where we have a quarterback, and you talked about playing a quarterback up or even a cornerback, but ours is a quarterback who just has that it factor. But like you said, those reads are slow. The arm strength isn't quite there yet, but still just has that moxie to kind of run things, right? And you need that in football. So you need sometimes a kid that says, we're going to go make it happen, whatever it takes, right? So seeing that, it's hard to keep that off the football field. When that's a kid who goes out and is like, no, we're going to make this successful. They go out and maybe it's a busted play and they continue to turn it into good things. We actually, before we hit record, we're talking about University of Oklahoma's quarterback, right? John Mateer. He has that. Now this is I guess technically a junior by class or maybe a senior. I don't know. He's got another year of eligibility. So he's been doing it a while at a really high level, but it's kind of the same thing. If you see that in your kid, it's hard to say, no, we're not going to put that on the field. So seeing that little bit of potential, primarily cognitive. You need the physical abilities so you don't get destroyed. But like we said, you can leave a giant on the sideline when they're a kind of a mental midget, when they're not ready to go out and do it cognitively yet. But if they see the game really well, there's a lot of physical traits that I can work around for a kid who has a high football IQ, that can be in the right place at right times, who can even put other people in the right places and help people get lined up. Like that's kind of a kid, you need one or two of those, right, on the team that can play out there sometimes. And then the last one I put on here is just because I've been at some very small schools. There's obviously some small schools in Oklahoma that are, trying to keep their head above water at that 8-man versus 11-man line or 9-man. I don't even know what we play over here. I think it's 8-man. Maybe you're running 15 kids out there on game day. You just got to put 11 kids on the field. That's what the rule book says. You got to have 11. So sometimes kids just aren't ready, but no one else is either, right? And so it's what kid can I put out there that maybe it is who can mentally handle it? Look, you're gonna screw up. Maybe it's just a kid who's the most coachable. I think there's a lot of situations there where you're just putting a kid in a position we talked about before. You just got to hide a kid, right? Where can I put them? Trying to play that best 11 mentality, just get 11 kids on the field. Sometimes that's what it is. So sometimes they aren't ready to play. You just have a gap and you got to plug it. Jump to our last part here, Coach, and we kind of touched on this a little bit, but how can we get a younger player ready for the big stage? So we got to play them no matter what, or we've decided it's their time to move up. What are we doing for that kid to make sure the lights aren't too bright when they kick on Friday?
Yeah, and I want to hit one thing before we get to that, if you're okay with that. So
yeah, absolutely.
One other thing you got to kind of measure, too, is if you know you're not going to be very good as a varsity team, like your senior classes, they're struggling, whatever that reason is. That book I put out 0-10 to 10-0. So that 0-10 year, we knew that senior group had struggled all the way through. Good kids, great people were around, worked hard, loved them. God didn't bless them with a lot of football talent. Okay. Sophomore group behind them was pretty good in junior high. They were a pretty good group. We knew that was kind of our building block. So we had to make the hard decisions there. There were several hard decisions there. We put 15 sophomores out there on the field. Of course, we didn't win a lot of games. We wouldn't have won a lot of games if we'd put 15 seniors out there on the field. But we were building for the future. That 0-10 group as seniors went 8-4. And so there's times when as a coach, you've got to evaluate that of, is this a time in our program where we can maybe sacrifice? We might have won a game or two if I'd been senior heavy that year, maybe, but we went 0-10 with the sophomores, lost 4 by a touchdown or less because they're babies. But that group was going to be our group. So sometimes you have to kind of evaluate that also. If you're at a small school and you can kind of see that cycle coming, that can be a tough decision to make. We started a sophomore quarterback, weighed $140. His senior year weighed 210. He was pretty good. So those are tough decisions. Okay, now, if you're going to put them on the field, here's some things that you want to try to do to help them. Number one, make practice competitive. You're not doing them any favors making practice easy. Not doing them any favors. Making practice easy. I actually think there's several kids that, we may bring up to practice with us. They're not ready to play games. But come on and practice with us a little bit and let this senior beat up on you some so that you get used to losing. Like, I don't want you to get used to losing games, but I want you to get used to you didn't win every rep. How are you going to handle that? So there's been several times, seventh graders, like again, I talked about my youngest one. He practices with the junior high kids. I'm sure he's getting some lessons. My son is a ninth grader, the older one, come practice with the senior high kids, get whipped a little bit, learn that, okay, I can't do things how I want to do them. I've got to learn this stuff. And those kids, didn't even play a ton that year, but we're getting them ready. Make practice difficult for them, not in a way where they hate it, in a way where it's teaching. Like, let them get beat and they say, hey, look, what did we learn? Talk with the senior, have the senior coach them up. That's one of my favorite things is you watch a rep where a senior just cooks one of those kids, stop them. Hey, man, tell them what you did to them and let the senior tell them what he did. And now it's not a me versus you. It's a me helping you get better. And again, that's how you kind of build your culture up is we're going to compete. And there's times it's going to get frustrated where it may turn into a little scuffle. That's okay. Once everybody's calm, go over to him and talk to him and let's work on how he can get better because we need him. Like we need him to get better. And that's how you kind of build your culture. Compete hard and teach each other. Second point I put on here is when you get them out there on Friday night, you ought to know what they can and can't do. Don't ask them to do things that they've not shown you all week in practice they can't do. Don't put your quarterback out there as a ninth grader and only throw the ball when it's 3rd and 12 and wonder why he's struggling. What does he throw well? What's an easy layup for him? Let's run that on first down. Let's get him some easy balls. You got a corner out there. Let's make sure maybe we put him in a situation where he can be protected, where he can see some success. Don't just put him out there and all of a sudden ask him to do hard things. Give him some layups as a coach. Put your outside linebacker out there who's a ninth grader. Send him off the edge. There's no thinking. Go off the edge. Go make a play in the backfield. Find something they can do that's going to be easy to do, that they can have some success. Run stuff they're good at. Like don't put them out there and put them in really difficult situations where this could go bad quickly. Like they're going to make mistakes. Let's see if we can get them some early success going. You got a guy you brought up on offense. Let's get him the ball early in a position he can maybe make a play. You got a guy on defense, maybe blitz them, maybe roll a coverage where they don't have to think, and they can maybe have some success early. I think that's extremely important for these young guys. And then be ready. Be ready for when they make a mistake. Be ready for when, especially if you stuck them in a key spot. Give you a real life example. So I mentioned my poor 7th grader. They pulled him up. Didn't think he was going to play a whole lot, and that was fine. And then we have injury. Next thing I look, he's out there at safety, which he's never even practiced safety very much with them. And then worse, all 3 of those injuries were our punters. So now we're having to punt. Well, not surprisingly, he punts it into the back of the up man. When he comes off the field crying and upset, I didn't have to say a word because I'm not coaching our junior high. Our junior high coaches immediately went to him, calmed him down. Hey, we know you're upset. Not your fault. We didn't work with you on this, yada, yada, yada. Now, suck it up. You got to go back out there, Buttercup, and play safety. Like, do you have stuff built in to handle when they fail? Because they're going to fail, and get them back out there. And so I think that's important stuff you got to have set up.
I love it. Yeah, they always are in the key positions, it seems like, right? That's about par for the course. I wrote down a couple here and we'll kind of start closing things out, but one is just simplify the game plan for them as much as necessary. And I don't think this means you have to simplify everything. The other 10 guys can continue running your system as long as, like you said, Coach, you're calling things that make them look good, highlight what they can do. If he does have to go in at safety, roll him in the flats every time. It's pretty easy to go tackle the ball as the force defender when you're already standing in the flats. It's pretty easy to not get burnt deep when the guy you're supposed to be covering is just hitting an out route, right? So putting them in a position where those big moments don't get to them, and then it's a little harder for them to screw up. Maybe having a freshman at force and supposed to go tackle a 210-pound running back is less than appealing, but that's okay. Get him some help there as soon as you can. So I think simplify the game plan. I think about corner, just running cover 2, cover 3, something where they're not having to move. They're not having to communicate too much. Just do the simple things they've probably already been doing at the junior high level anyway. And then I think putting others in a position to hide him. So, kind of the same concept here, but if it's on game day, wherever that guy is, we're wanting everything else to kind of work around him or revolve around him. So tight end, hey, you're just going to be down blocking tonight. Okay, we're not going to put you on any routes. Can you down block and can you reach block? Great. You're going to do fine at what we're doing here. Maybe you're a pull wrap kind of guy if you're a GT counter or GH counter guy. Just keeping them in to pass pro as much as possible. Yeah, so just hide them. Don't put them in a position to be on an island by themselves against someone that's good. Simplify the game plan where that doesn't happen to them. You may even roll them always to we talked last week about trips concepts, and we're going to pick on a kid. Roll them out of that situation, right? Maybe you don't leave them one-on-one on the backside against the best athlete in the state. That's just simple stuff to do. Through the situation of the week, Coach, we'll start closing this out.
Sure.
It says you have an underclassman that's better than a senior at a key position. The senior has shown up and is a good kid, just not as good as the underclassman. You need to make a move, but how do you do it?
It's a tough one. That's a tough one. I mean, it's one of the deals where, and really at any level, when you've got to make that decision, what we've tried to do in the past is what role can that senior play that's maybe not at that position. So usually if you're talking about this, you think quarterback, you think it could be any position, but usually you think kind of those positions. Can that kid play somewhere else? Can we move him maybe to receiver? Can we move him maybe to linebacker? Can we move him to wherever and let him have some success? And it's not what he wanted, but at least he's still playing. That's the first thing we're going to look at. Second thing we're going to do is we're going to have open and honest communication with that kid. I think it's one of those deals where you better be with him. Hey, you're a big part of our team. It just might have not have been the role you wanted. We need you to be here. And then you better have the temperature of the room. How does the team feel about that? How is that going to go? Who do I need to talk to fix that stuff? When you start playing kids up, you're going to hurt somebody's feelings. And is that somebody you're okay to hurt their feelings? Have you at least had conversations with them? Have you given them opportunities to play somewhere else? Ultimately, your job as a coach is to give yourself the best chance to win. That's your job. But you are also dealing with kids who have worked as hard as they could for you. I'm assuming that's what this situation is. Where can we move that kid where he can still play?
Yeah, I think that's giving him a shot somewhere else. Maybe he's just a role player or whatever, but yeah, you can't just take him from starter to bench warmer all at once. I think that's a little beyond. Sweet. Let's run through our sponsors real quick, Coach. We've got Ace Sports. If you haven't already, look up their stuff, man. Great boards. The best quality product on the market. So make sure that you're reaching out to Ace Sports. It's mark.bridges@acesports.com is the email. You can also just DM me or whatever, and I can hook you up. Winning Edge Performance Analytics. Contact Doug. Go over to the website. Sign up today. Get 20% off with 20 off Coaching 101. Social media, I'm at Coach Chambo OK. You can email me at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com. I do have a website, chamberlainfootballconsulting.com. Great place to get the podcast if you're looking for either of the podcasts. And, of course, YouTube, where I'm pretending that I'm putting football things out there. Kenny is at FB Coach Simpson on Twitter /X. You can email him at fbcoachsimpson@gmail.com. And then jump over to fbcoachsimpson.com where he has all the things from Gun Tea. You can go over there and get the dates for the clinics. Go over there and get a million different products. Some free, some paid. Just find the thing that's good for you. The podcast is at Coaching 101 Pod on Twitter. We want to thank you for being a listener to the Coaching 101 podcast. We'll hope you join us next week as we continue to make the complex more simple. Please consider subscribing to the show so you'll always know when the new episodes are out. We'll leave you with this. It's hard to beat someone who never gives up. No matter the situation, find a way.